The fluorescent lights of the hospital hallway flickered slightly, casting a sterile glow over the polished floors. The low hum of ventilators and distant footsteps echoed through the corridors. Dr. Amelia Carter, a young black physician in her early 30s, walked briskly, clutching her folder filled with notes and research proposals. She entered the office of Dr. Whitman, the senior attending physician, her heart steady but her palms slightly damp. "Good morning, Dr. Whitman," she began. "I'd like to discuss a new approach to patient care for the cardiology department. I believe it could improve recovery time significantly." Dr. Whitman, a white man in his 50s with an air of authority, didn't even glance at her papers. He waved a dismissive hand. "Amelia, I'm far too busy to entertain these ideas right now. Sit down when you've learned to pick your battles. Frankly, your enthusiasm is misplaced." Amelia froze for a moment, shock and disbelief colliding in her chest. She had prepared for this meeting for weeks, studied every detail, and now, her expertise was brushed aside with a single wave. Her voice stayed calm, though tight with controlled frustration. "Sir, I believe this method has the potential to save lives. Even a brief discussion could make a difference for our patients." Dr. Whitman leaned back in his chair, smirking. "I don't need to hear it. Maybe when you have more experience, you'll understand how things work around here." Amelia's chest tightened, but she refused to let anger overtake her. She nodded once, gathering her folder. "Very well, Dr. Whitman. Thank you for your time," she said quietly, and turned to leave. Outside the office, the corridor seemed colder than before. She paused for a moment, taking a deep breath, reminding herself that her knowledge and capability were not defined by someone else's prejudice. Deep inside, a quiet determination began to grow. She would prove them wrong. Not tomorrow, not next week, but soon enough, in a way they could not ignore. Amelia walked briskly down the hospital corridor, the click of her shoes echoing against the sterile tiles. Her hands clutched the folder tightly, her fingers pressing into the edges as though it could contain the tension coiling in her chest. She had expected skepticism. Most young doctors faced resistance, but not outright dismissal, especially not in such a condescending, almost mocking tone. She found herself in the small lounge, empty except for a colleague sipping coffee in the corner. Dr. Patel, her mentor and confidant, looked up as she slumped into a chair across from him. "What happened?" he asked, his voice calm but concerned. Amelia exhaled, her voice low but steady. "Whitman. He didn't even look at my proposal. Just waved me off. Said my ideas were misplaced. That I should learn my place." Dr. Patel's eyebrows rose, a mixture of anger and sympathy crossing his face. "That's unacceptable. You know your research is sound. You've worked tirelessly on this. His dismissal isn't a reflection of your abilities, it's his bias." Amelia nodded, the weight in her chest slowly transforming into a spark of determination. "I know. But it still hurts. I prepared everything meticulously. I thought, maybe this time, they would listen." Dr. Patel leaned forward, resting a hand on hers. "Amelia, brilliance isn't always recognized immediately, especially by people blinded by their own assumptions. Don't let this stop you. Share your work. Find the stage that will value it." She looked down at her folder, flipping through pages of notes, charts, and diagrams she had compiled late into the night. Each number, each method, was proof, not just to Whitman, but to herself, that her work mattered. Her jaw set. "You were right," she said firmly. "If they won't give me 5 minutes here, I'll find a bigger stage. One they can't ignore." Dr. Patel smiled, a small glint of pride in his eyes. "That's the Amelia I know. Let them underestimate you now, they'll have no choice but to respect you later." Amelia folded her folder, her hands steadier than before. The sting of dismissal still lingered, but it was no longer heavy enough to weigh her down. Instead, it became fuel. A quiet fire ignited in her chest, a promise that her expertise, her vision, and her determination would not be silenced. The hospital might have refused to listen today, but the world outside was wide, and she intended to make her voice heard. In the weeks that followed, Amelia dedicated herself to her research with relentless focus. Every evening after her hospital shifts, she returned home to her small study, the soft hum of her laptop and the rustle of papers filling the quiet apartment. Charts, patient outcomes, and protocols covered her desk. Her whiteboard was crammed with flowcharts and calculations, each line a step toward a breakthrough she knew could save lives. She submitted her first paper to a respected medical journal. Weeks later, the acceptance letter arrived, accompanied by notes from the reviewers praising her meticulous methodology and innovative approach. The email made her heart race, validation from people who judged her solely on her expertise, not her age, gender, or skin color. Soon, invitations followed. Conferences, symposiums, and panels wanted her insights. She presented her findings at a regional medical forum, her calm voice carrying authority and precision. Attendees, including senior doctors and professors, nodded appreciatively as she outlined her methodology and demonstrated measurable improvements in patient recovery. Back at the hospital, whispers began circulating among colleagues. Some were impressed, others surprised, and a few envious. Even those who had dismissed her initially began to notice her growing reputation. Yet Amelia remained grounded. She continued to see patients, mentor interns, and refine her research, her determination quietly evident in every action. She did not seek attention, the results spoke for themselves. Dr. Patel caught up with her one evening after a long lecture. "You've made an impression," he said, smiling. "People are talking about your work. Even Whitman has noticed." Amelia raised an eyebrow, a faint smile on her lips. "Let him notice. That doesn't change my work. It doesn't change my patients. But it does mean that eventually, no one can ignore what I've done." Her confidence grew with each success. The refusal that had once bruised her pride now served as a motivator, proof that she was capable of rising above prejudice. The hospital might have ignored her voice, but the larger medical community was listening. By the time she prepared for her next presentation, a national-level conference, Amelia knew one thing with certainty: she would not be silenced. She had found a stage where her expertise commanded attention, and she intended to make every word, every chart, every recommendation count. The hospital corridors buzzed with activity as Amelia prepared for her presentation to the National Healthcare Program. Her research had attracted attention, and now she was invited to lead a pilot program that could revolutionize patient care. But back at the hospital, Dr. Whitman had learned about her upcoming presentation. The same man who had dismissed her ideas weeks earlier now approached colleagues in hushed tones, his face tight with irritation. "She's overstepping," he muttered. "No one gave her permission to speak at a national forum. She needs to stay in her place." Whispers spread quickly among the staff. Some nurses exchanged worried glances, while junior doctors looked uncertain. A few allies of Amelia tried to reassure her, but she could feel the tension in the air, the weight of skepticism and bias lingering, trying to undermine her confidence. In the conference room, Amelia set up her laptop, checking slides and data one final time. Her hands were steady, her mind focused. When Whitman entered, his expression was a mixture of irritation and disbelief. He leaned against the doorway. "Amelia," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "I hope you understand this is a big responsibility. Don't embarrass the hospital in front of experts who actually know what they're doing." Amelia looked up calmly, meeting his gaze. "Thank you for your concern, Dr. Whitman," she said evenly. "But my work stands on data and results, not opinions. I'll let the results speak for themselves." As the presentation began, the tension in the room became palpable. Whitman muttered under his breath to a few senior staff members, clearly trying to sow doubt. But Amelia's voice remained confident, precise, and unwavering. She walked the audience through her methodology, patient outcomes, and innovative protocols, highlighting measurable improvements that could save lives. By the end of the session, the room was silent for a moment, a silence filled not with tension, but with awe. Then applause erupted, louder and more genuine than Amelia could have imagined. Experts and colleagues rose to their feet, nodding and praising her insights. Whitman's face flushed as he realized that Amelia's work had commanded respect he could not deny. He had tried to belittle her, to diminish her contributions, but the data in her clear, confident presentation had done what he could not. It had earned universal acknowledgement. Amelia returned to her seat, composed but proud. Inside, a quiet triumph burned. The refusal, the doubt, the condescension, none of it mattered anymore. She had proven that expertise, persistence, and integrity could overcome prejudice. The hospital might still harbor skeptics, but Amelia now had the undeniable authority of accomplishment. And soon, the world beyond those walls would recognize her as well. Weeks later, Amelia stood on the stage of a national medical conference, the bright lights illuminating her as she adjusted the microphone. Hundreds of physicians, researchers, and hospital administrators filled the auditorium, their attention focused solely on her. The banner above the stage read, National Innovation in Medicine Awards, honoring excellence in patient care. Amelia's heart raced, but she drew a deep breath and let her preparation guide her. This was the platform she had fought to reach, the stage that no longer allowed prejudice to overshadow her work. She began her presentation, walking the audience through her protocols, research findings, and the results from her pilot programs. As she spoke, heads nodded, pens scribbled, and murmurs of approval rippled through the room. She could see the respect in the eyes of senior doctors and hospital administrators, people who judged her solely on her competence, not her age, gender, or skin color. At the conclusion of her talk, a panel of judges stepped forward to announce the winners. Amelia's name echoed through the auditorium. Dr. Amelia Carter, for outstanding innovation in patient care, and for contributions that have demonstrably improved patient outcomes across multiple departments. Applause erupted, filling the room with thunderous approval. Cameras flashed, journalists scribbled notes, and colleagues rose to their feet in recognition. Amelia felt a wave of relief and pride wash over her. The validation was complete. Back at her hospital, word of her award spread quickly. Colleagues who had once ignored her now offered congratulations, some sheepishly, some genuinely. Dr. Whitman, reading the press release, turned pale as he realized the magnitude of what he had dismissed. Amelia smiled quietly to herself. The recognition was not just for her research, but for the quiet persistence that had carried her through prejudice, dismissal, and doubt. She had proven her worth, and the world had listened. Her mentor, Dr. Patel, caught up with her backstage and said, "They can't ignore you now, Amelia. You've earned your place at every table that matters." Amelia nodded, holding her award carefully. Inside, she knew this was just the beginning. Her work would continue, her voice would continue to be heard, and her influence on medicine would only grow. The morning after Amelia's award made headlines, the hospital corridors were buzzing with whispers. Staff members crowded around computers and phones, reading articles about her achievement. Nurses stopped mid-step to exchange astonished glances, interns whispered excitedly, and even seasoned doctors paused to discuss her research. Dr. Whitman, who had once dismissed her so casually, stood in the administrative office, staring at the screen in disbelief. His face flushed red as he scrolled through the article detailing Amelia's groundbreaking protocols and the national award she had received. He leaned back, gripping the edge of his desk. How did I miss this?" he muttered under his breath. Across the hospital, colleagues approached Amelia with genuine admiration. "Dr. Carter, congratulations. Your work is incredible. I can't believe what you've accomplished," said a senior physician. "I'm so proud of you. You've set a new standard for the whole department," added another. Even staff members who had been skeptical before now sought her advice, eager to learn from her methods and insights. The respect she had earned was palpable, filling every hallway and room she entered. Dr. Whitman finally walked into the break room, trying to maintain a neutral expression, but the embarrassment on his face betrayed him. He approached Amelia cautiously. "Dr. Carter," he said, his voice low, "congratulations on the award. I underestimated your work." Amelia looked at him calmly, her tone firm but not unkind. "Dr. Whitman, this isn't about proving anyone wrong. It's about improving patient care. That's what matters." Whitman nodded, silently acknowledging his mistake. Around them, colleagues watched, some smiling, some nodding in quiet approval. Amelia's professionalism and achievement had spoken louder than any dismissal could. The hospital had changed overnight. Where doubt and prejudice had once lingered, respect and admiration now prevailed. Amelia's name was spoken with pride, and her influence extended across departments. She was no longer a young doctor ignored in a hallway, she was a recognized leader, a symbol of dedication and expertise. Inside, Amelia felt a quiet satisfaction. The journey had been long, and the resistance had been strong, but now her work and her integrity had commanded the recognition they deserved. Months later, the hospital's boardroom was filled with anticipation. Doctors, administrators, and staff had gathered for an important announcement. Amelia Carter walked to the podium, her posture confident, her expression calm. She held herself with the quiet authority she had earned through years of dedication, research, and perseverance. The hospital director cleared his throat and smiled. "Today, we recognize not only excellence in medicine, but leadership, vision, and the ability to inspire. It is my honor to announce our new Chief of Medicine, Dr. Amelia Carter." Applause erupted. Staff members stood, cheering and clapping, some wiping tears from their eyes. Amelia smiled, nodding in acknowledgement. This moment was not just a professional victory, it was the culmination of years of persistence in the face of dismissal, bias, and doubt. Even Dr. Whitman, seated near the front, looked humbled. He approached her after the ceremony, his face a mixture of embarrassment and respect. "Dr. Carter. I see now what I failed to recognize before. Congratulations," he said quietly. Amelia met his gaze with calm assurance. "Thank you, Dr. Whitman. The work speaks for itself, and it always will." She turned to address the staff. "My role is to ensure that every voice in this hospital is heard, every idea is considered, and every patient receives the best care possible. Leadership is not about titles or recognition, it's about fostering a community where expertise and compassion guide us." The room erupted into applause once more, this time in recognition not just of her position, but of the integrity, skill, and perseverance she embodied. Later, in her new office overlooking the hospital courtyard, Amelia placed her award from the national conference on a shelf. She looked out the window at the bustling corridors below and smiled quietly. She had transformed doubt into respect, dismissal into recognition, and prejudice into proof of her unwavering capability. Amelia Carter had not only claimed the title of Chief of Medicine, she had claimed the authority and respect she had always deserved. And in doing so, she had become a beacon for every young doctor who had ever been underestimated, overlooked, or dismissed. Sometimes, the loudest voice in the room is the one backed by unwavering dedication and undeniable skill.